Good morning, everybody. Welcome to an October 26th edition of Alabama Game Day today. Can you believe it? Feels like just yesterday the year started. Now we're almost at Halloween. Apologies for me getting this out a little bit later than normal. A friend of mine who I graduated high school with got married last night, so I went to the wedding, and of course, I'm a little bit more tired. Had to sleep a little bit later than what I normally do. But here we go. I'm still getting this out to you. I'm not going to disappoint y'all. And I want to keep this thing going. So, Alabama Game Day today, which looks like it's going to remain the title of the show. I ran a Twitter poll yesterday, and the options were Alabama Game Day today, Morning on the Tide, and Who Cares, You Idiot. Naturally, Who Cares, You Idiot won the poll, but obviously you can't name a show on YouTube, Who Cares, You Idiot. So what I'm taking that as is y'all really don't care one way or another if I change the name of the show. But since we're already rolling with it, might as well keep it as Alabama Game Day today. So I'm going to keep it the title for the rest of the season at least. Today, Alabama plays the Missouri Tigers. The Missouri Tigers commence the game ranked number 21 with one loss, and that one loss being to the Texas A&M Aggies. Whereas Alabama comes into the game 5-2, ranked number 15 with the losses to Vanderbilt and lost last week to the Tennessee Volunteers. Neither team really has looked impressive over the last few weeks. Missouri, they lost big time to the Texas A&M Aggies, who are better than we thought they were, but the fact they got blown out by them is kind of disturbing if you're a Missouri fan. And then last week, we're down 17-0 at one point to the Auburn Tigers, who only have 2 wins, and had to have a last-minute comeback win to beat Auburn last week. On the other hand, you have Alabama. Alabama has not really looked the same since the victory over Georgia. We beat the Georgia Bulldogs, obviously. But in the past 3 weeks, we lost to Vanderbilt. Then we barely eked out a win over South Carolina. And then we lost last week to Tennessee after holding a lead for most of the game, only for it to evaporate at the end of the game. Both teams are looking for some sort of consistency in this game today, because they have looked horribly inconsistent the past couple of weeks. And if the schedule, well, Missouri might be, I don't know who Missouri plays the rest of the year, but they have an easier schedule than Alabama, I can tell you that, because Alabama, they still got to play LSU. They still got to go on the road to Oklahoma, which Oklahoma hasn't been doing well, but it is an unfamiliar road environment that Alabama has never played in, at least in my lifetime, maybe not some of your lifetimes either. And we still got a main ride with the Auburn Tigers, who, even though they're not particularly good, are giving people a run for their money in games. So this isn't particularly, since Missouri only has one loss, isn't particularly a playoff eliminator game for Missouri, but when you consider that they're ranked 21st and don't really have an impressive win, it could very well be that if Missouri loses this game, even if they do win out, there's a likelihood they would not make the playoff. Alabama, on the other hand, has to win the game to keep their playoff hopes alive, because we already have 2 losses. If we lose another game, you might as well call us out of the playoff, because if we lose another game, we'll be sitting on 3 losses and need not only to win out, but a miracle to get into the playoff. I don't think a 9-3 team's getting into the playoff this year. I think if you're a 10-2 SEC team or 10-2 Big Ten team, I think you're in automatically. But if you fall to a 3rd loss, no matter what conference you're in, I think you're out. And the schedule for Alabama still got to play LSU on the road in the worst environment for the road team to play in. So you got to win this game. Now, luckily for Alabama, you do have a bye week following this game. But the opponent, LSU, also has a bye week following the game. So make what you want about that. On one hand, we do get players back when you are rested and healthy, or at least healthier than we would normally be if we played a game the previous week. But on the other hand, they're also going to be rested, have a chance to get back some players. So it's going to be tough either way to beat LSU in Death Valley. It's going to be even tougher if you're sitting on 3 losses following this game. So if you're Bama, this is a must win. And it's sad that we're saying this in October in the era of the 12-team playoff, but it's true. We have to win this game. If we lose this game, we can kiss playoff hopes goodbye. We've already kissed SEC hopes goodbye because you got to hope that the loser of the Texas A&M LSU game loses again, and that the winner loses twice. That's not going to happen. And then you have to hope Texas loses a game. You have to hope that Vanderbilt loses 2 games because even if they only lose 1, that puts them ahead of you by virtue of outcomes of games. You have to hope Tennessee loses twice. You could hope that Georgia loses once, but that would also hurt you in strength of schedule, so you cannot hope that they lose the game. Alabama is not in the SEC title picture, and if they want to stay in the college football playoff picture, we got to win. Give me 1 second while I pull up the odds for the game. Bear with me, folks. I'm trying to find the odds for the game on Bet US right now. There we go. Alabama favored in the game by 16 points. So if you think Bama is going to win by 16 or more, you're going to take Bama minus 16. If you think Missouri keeps it closer than 16 points or wins it, you take Missouri plus 16. Alabama has minus 700 odds to win the game, whereas Missouri has plus 500 odds to win the game. Over under in total points in the game is 51, and the implied final betting score is Alabama 33, Missouri 16. I don't think it gets that high scoring. I think it's going to be a rather lower scoring game than what people are thinking. The big thing you got to worry about Mizzou is one thing is that they may not be good and explosive, but towards the end of the game, they're going to play like that. So you got to worry about that because that's what you got to worry about because if it's a close game in the 4th, Missouri's got a big chance. That's really the key. We got to get off to a good early start. We cannot have a close game in the 4th quarter. Otherwise, hold on 1 second because I need to see something on the injury report for Missouri. ESPN broke the headline that Brady Cook is expected to play the game. Brady Cook is Missouri's main starting quarterback. He's been out for, I think, a couple weeks due to an injury. Yeah, it was an ankle injury. he left the Auburn game last week with the ankle injury and got an MRI at the hospital. Somehow returned and led them to a winning drive. And that's what you got to worry about is Brady Cook. Now, Brady Cook obviously, even before the ankle injury, didn't have escapability. Now he has even less escapability because of the ankle injury, but he's got deep threat ability, and he's very accurate. If you go back and watch the Tennessee game last week, there were plenty of opportunities for Tennessee to completely blow the game open. The only reason they did it was because Nico Imalava, something along those lines. He had a bunch of wide open guys, but either underthrew or overthrew them blatantly on his fault. Brady Cook's not going to do that. If there's a wide open man, he's going to hit him. You cannot leave these receivers wide open like that. We got to play better defensively. That's been a weak point, is that our defense isn't playing up to par. Other than that, there's really nothing more I can add. You heard me say last week when I said it looks like we're entering our Les Miles era, and that doesn't mean that we're going to look like LSU under Les Miles. LSU under Les Miles had like 8-5, 7-6 seasons occasionally. But what I'm getting at is that we're not going to be the automatic blow everybody apart. We're going to have some puzzle. It looks like we're going to have some puzzling losses and some games where we should have blown them out, but it got close. This team needs to hurry up and find an identity. And another thing, too, not only could it look like we're in our Les Miles era, there's another guy on YouTube. Last week, with the Les Miles era stuff, I was quoting Matt Moscona. But there was another guy who brought up this, and it's Uncle Lou. Uncle Lou. He brought up something else, too. Have you ever had an amazing teacher who was probably the greatest teacher you'll ever have? May have been a pain in the butt at times, but made sure everybody was on task, discipline issues were at a minimum, everybody did their work, and you got, as long as you did what you needed to, you got a good grade in his or her class, and probably the greatest teacher you'll ever meet. But then that person retires, and then another teacher comes in who may be a good teacher. May not necessarily be a bad teacher, but with everybody being so used to how that teacher, the previous teacher was doing, and the new teacher comes in and does things differently, it's not going to look the same. The results aren't going to look the same. And I kind of agree with Uncle Lou. That's what we're seeing right now with Alabama. We're so used to Nick Saban and Nick Saban's way of getting things done. Nick Saban wanted everything perfect. Kalen DeBoer comes in, and DeBoer is not a bad coach. That's where I'd want to disagree with some of you Alabama fans on Twitter that have been calling for Kalen DeBoer to be fired. Kalen DeBoer is a great coach. Now, he doesn't have a title, and he probably will not win 7 national titles, but he is a good coach, and he's a good team builder. Just look at what he did with a 4-8 Washington, and then 2 years later bringing them to the national title game. That's how good of a coach Kalen DeBoer is. But he's not the same coach Nick Saban was. And there's been reports that he's not as completely detail-oriented. Obviously, he's still got to get the details down, but he's not 100% completely detail-oriented as Nick Saban. Nick Saban wanted every detail right. Kalen DeBoer is more of a results kind of guy. So there's going to be some instances, at least in the transitional years between Saban and DeBoer, where we're not going to look like we did for 15 years under Nick Saban. We're going to kind of resemble LSU under Miles for a little bit. Again, I'm not knocking DeBoer. I think DeBoer is a great coach. I'm glad we got DeBoer, especially coming off of that national championship season. Well, not national championship season, but national championship appearance season at Washington. And I think he's probably one of the better coaches we could have gotten in the situation. But his philosophy isn't the same as Saban. And there's even been reports that the locker room is split on which approach they favor. A lot of the younger people really didn't go in Saban's system or only spent a year in Saban's system, and they are willing and ready to roll with the Boer system. Whereas the older players, they're more familiar with Saban's system, and they're going to favor Saban's system. Now, as time goes on, Caleb DeBoer system is going to be the one that rules over. So in the classes that come in, they're going to favor DeBoer. But for the time being, with the transition between Saban and DeBoer, it's going to look different, feel different. I mean, look at LSU when Saban left after having seasons where they made it to the SEC title game, won the national title in 2003. Then Miles took over, and even though they did get to the SEC title game in the season Miles got there, and then 2 years later Miles had him playing for the national championship, it didn't feel like this was Les Miles' team. For the first 2 years, it felt like it was Saban's team being led by Les Miles. And then as time went on, we saw more of the Les Miles system, which, for better or for worse, LSU is split on Les Miles, so I'm not really going to go into a lot of that. I think DeBoer is better as a coach than Les Miles. Maybe he doesn't see the same results. But this is what I want to bring up, that we as Bama fans got spoiled. I'm going to just say it right there. We got spoiled with Nick Saban and bringing in talent like Bryce Young, Tua Tagovailoa, Jalen Hurts, Amari Cooper, Derrick Henry, Mark Ingram. And now we got DeBoer, and it looks different, and we're not used to it. We got to get used to a new reality. It's like, because I'm also a Patriots fan, it's like when after 2019, we had Tom Brady, and Tom Brady was able to help bring in Julian Edelman and Rob Gronkowski, Danny Amendola, and others who helped with the Patriots dynasty in the mid 2010s. But then 2019 ended, and Tom Brady decided he wanted to change the scenery, went to Tampa Bay, and slowly the Patriots declined. We tried to salvage some things with Cam Newton. That didn't really work out well. Then we had the failed Mac Jones experiment, which I don't completely think is Mac Jones' fault. I'm going to get to what I think was actually the problem in just a little bit. But Mac Jones he showed promise in his first year, but then flopped afterwards. And then 2023, Belichick's no longer the coach. I think what happened, because I saw this as a Patriots fan, I think what happened is that Belichick didn't really run things well as a GM. He is an amazing coach, and I think if we could have had, as a Patriots organization, Belichick relinquish control as GM and keep him as coach, I would have loved it. Because Belichick is still an amazing on-field coach. But as a GM, that's where he had his faults. And when Tom Brady left and we no longer had Tom Brady to match Belichick's deficiencies, that's when they were on full display with the failed Cam Newton experiment. Mac Jones, which, again, I don't think is 100% his fault. I think there's some things he could have done better. I think he could have managed the locker room better than what he did. But he didn't have the weapons he needed in a lot of cases where Belichick didn't really show it that well. And 2023, Mac Jones and Belichick are both gone, and now we got trying to rebuild after completely crumbling. That's what and it's not to the extreme, and I hope very sincerely, I doubt it's going to happen, and I hope very sincerely that it doesn't, where Bama doesn't crumble and fall as hard as the Patriots did. But you lose the greatest, you then have to rebuild yourself, especially when you were centered around that one person. New England was centered heavily around Brady, and when he left, they crumbled. Another good example, New Orleans Saints were centered around Sean Payton and Drew Brees. Drew Brees and Sean Payton leave. Saints have not recovered. Now, I don't think we're going to crumble like the Saints did. I think we're a better run athletic organization than what the Saints were run as, what the Patriots were run as. But with Saban gone, it's a transition, and it's not going to look the same. Over time, I think DeBoer does show he's a good coach, and I think DeBoer has at least one national championship in his future, whether it's with Alabama or if it's somebody else. But for now, it's not going to show that way because he isn't running it the same way Saban is, and with so many people so used to the way Saban ran the program, another guy running it isn't going to be the same, and that's going to cause some growing pains in a lot of cases. Anyway, that is today's episode of Alabama Game Day Today. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Hit the like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. There will not be an Alabama Game Day Today episode next week, simply because Alabama next week is on a bye week. So I'm not going to get an episode out because, well, it won't be Alabama Game Day. I'm probably going to do some shorts and that, but I'm not going to release a full show of Alabama Game Day Today. Next episode of Alabama Game Day Today is actually going to be not next Saturday, but the Saturday after that, when Alabama goes on the road to play LSU. In the meantime, enjoy this. I hope you enjoyed this episode. And I will see you throughout the day in various short episodes. See you later. Roll Tide.